Well, hello, everybody. Yes, the truth is at our reach. I wanted to do a video strictly on things that, more in the spiritual of what you need to look out for, because as we all know, everyone thinks that once the financial problems are solved, everything goes back to normal. No, it's not, because we have a deep embedded moral problem, and that's in many countries, but what I'm going to put in here, I don't think people realize how much of this that's going on, because, a lot of people do things in secret, except you're seeing it manifest out on the streets. That's why you see a lot of people scratching their heads saying, what are these people saying and doing? And, it goes into many areas. That's why they promoted anything that is of an immoral nature has been promoted. And some people accept it because they think it's their right to, but it's not. Okay, starting with, let me just bring this up again, like I always do, with the voodoo donuts, everybody. Okay, this is just one example, except what people don't understand, they think, oh, well, that's just some place out in, Portland, out in the Northwest. No, this is why this is expanded. Now, think about this. Why do you think, I've had people write and blow it off, but then, they probably shills anyway. But no, it's not, because that's why now they have one at Denver Airport, Universal, Orlando, and many other places. Okay, why do you think that is? You don't just, anybody have a private type place that shows up? But it's the content and what they have with what they show. Like, just this is on the box, okay? And I've told you about this in the past that, yes, of course, it's about voodoo. Then you've got the old man with the cane here. This goes into the line of Cain. This goes into this Esau. This, I also figured out that, because of what I'm going to put in this video about this, there's so many different names that they use with these deities. This Asherah tree. Okay, like the poles that they use that in other cultures too, with these poles. In the pagan religions, poles with ribbons, like totem poles, there's all kinds of poles. But, for people who don't know, if you're not familiar, there's people who aren't familiar with some of these things, so I'm going to put these in again. About, you see this up here. Now, of course, I'm going to censor myself in case I decide to put this on YouTube, because I haven't put anything on there forever. And, look at the names of these donuts, right? Would you even want to eat that? But think about Universal. That's where families bring their little children, okay? There's people who make jokes about this. People are saying, this is not like adult paraphernalia. This is, targeted to young people and children. And how disgusting all the names of those donuts are. Now, let me go back again to this. This was August 5th of 2018, 11:39 a.m. This picture was taken at this location in Portland, okay, by Mr. Graham, okay? Again, I'm going to put this in. Now, isn't it amazing to all of you, and, don't you find this amazing that they're always using him for everything? We understand his father was, well, why is that? Well, you could go down that rabbit hole, because I'm not going to put that on this video, but all that, a lot of people are not familiar. I'm amazed, and there's people out there with fairly good videos, but I'm talking about in the spiritual sense, who use his father for, and I'm thinking to myself, you don't know that the man was a big, then I don't understand why, you need to, educate yourself, okay? Now, this is so nauseating, right? With, I did a little compilation here, but, all the stuff that they do, it goes in deeper. People just don't understand, what's in the dough. Okay, I'm not going to go in. Use your imagination. What's in the dough? And then you've got up there, the dirty old, what. That's what they are. And worse than that, the Ouija board, we know how awful that is. Conjuring up things, but it's disgusting. Then you have gay bar down there, promoting everything that you're not supposed to. Good things come in pink boxes. Well, All the symbolism. I can't go into all of it right here because, I don't want to get censored. But, look at, in the middle here with the cross with Jesus on it, they're the most, it reminds you of the Olympics we just had with the Dionysus orgy and everything. Yeah. But this is sick. This is how this all is. It's like they're, putting it right in your face, like I'm eating the children of God. It's really grotesque. What do you even say? But there are people I have in the past that used to make comments. Like I said, they're probably shills, but, sticking up for this stuff, saying, oh, I live out there, I don't see what the big deal. If you don't see what the big deal is, but again, it goes back to, why do you think that they are at Universal and Denver Airport? All about Denver Airport? Well, you should. If not, go back. Lots of videos on that. Justice for children and pets. And do we see some of that? Yeah, we do. We see, it's only because of Jesus we see tons of arrests in for people, you should be paying attention. In these churches, I put those links in all the time. It's amazing, actually. It's so amazing how many people are getting arrested and things for that and removed. But what's sad is why, think about who people just go and have infiltrated all of these churches and other types of, new age, whatever, anything to do with your thinking and spirituality, or in school. And, I've gone over this. You'll find all of the pervs and sickos. Okay. Yes, because prayers change things. Yes, they do. Now, let me just get into this. Okay. There's, these are just examples, and I had this for years. I kept, and, I just happen to put this out now because I see a lot of people talking about these things. Harpies are related to furies, succubi, gorgons, and sirens. All 5 species are strictly female that torture or kill humans. They also work for a goddess called Irenaeus. Okay? And there's many names, everybody. It talks about, you can go look this up yourself. It goes into details about, they call these, some of them called sirens. Well, sirens are actually more like, and they used to depict them, they look like mermaids, but they have wings, okay? So they show mermaids without wings, mermaids with wings. That's what this marine kingdom. Gorgons, as you know, that's like Medusa with the snakes in the hair. Yeah, well, it's too bad we can't get that one to go look at all the pervs. But anyway, it's really sick. And then you've got this succubi, and, there's all kinds of other spiritual, they talk about incubi, succubi. There's many names. You got to do like prayers over these things. But what people don't understand is that if you could have somebody on your street, for example, and people do, and you don't know about it, that is involved. I think what people do is they blow this off and think that nobody's doing. Well, unfortunately, I hate to inform you that there are lots of people doing weird stuff. A lot of this stuff comes over from the islands. That's why we have a lot of people influxes, but also came from Europe way back from the paganists. There's all kinds of, I'm not going to go into, like, remember the Salem witch trials? We know they're trying to prove now that there was nothing to that. I don't believe that that's not true. They come up with excuses now for that, but, those people all knew each other real well. And I really don't think that they wanted to have to go those routes with those people. It's because something was going on, okay, like we're seeing it now. I just talked about in my other video about, Pride Month with the moth reference. Well, here we go again with the moth. Because of the large brown feathered wings on the backs of the harpies, they're allowed to fly. They cannot fly at supersonic speeds or extremely high altitudes. Okay, whether you believe there's or not, these are all part of this evil kingdom. And Jesus talked about this, everybody, but, people blow this off. That's why, they say a lot of the pastors and things aren't telling you. Well, because, of course, they've taken things out. That's why if you go back to some of the books that were taken about with Enoch and all these different things, they talk about these evil entities. They bring this up in the Dead Sea Scrolls, too, because there's so many and different names. They're all unclean spirits. And people are conjuring these things up. And it's right in our faces. Right in our faces. Okay? I mean, here, I wanted to get into this about this Asherah pole and tree. And there's many names here. Was known by many names and titles and Semitic religions, reflecting her roles as a mother goddess. You see all these New Age people talk about the goddess thing and this and fertility. And like I said, there's many names. It depends what culture. Here's like a lot of the common ones you hear people talk about, like this Ishtar, which is the one, believe it or not, everybody, that's the one they show on the Starbucks coffee, which looks like a mermaid, People say, well, what would a mermaid have to do with a tree and all? Because they show it as a tree, too. I get that's confusing, but look at down here, Lady of the Seas, a title reflecting her association with the sea. You see, they use different type of... Sometimes you'll see her as like in the sea, which that's on the coffee there that you see. But then a lot of times as the tree, like she's in the tree or on the tree, or like, basically they show it like she is a tree with like some kind of a living heart in the tree. I mean, all of that. I'm not going to go into it long because it's confusing for a lot of people. So I'm trying to make it like a basic thing. But I mean, you could go down each and every one of these names, which always goes back to the same thing, and spend hours and hours and hours. You could spend weeks on these subjects. Okay. That's why it goes back to, that's why a lot of people who have, pastors, ministers, whoever these people, even online ministers, I mean, if they don't tell you anything. Some of them even bring up something, but my thing is, well, bringing it up isn't going to do any good if you don't explain what it is, because, you have to educate yourself. I mean, I've studied these things for long time, because way back I knew there was something going on. I remember when I was 18, I read a book on the lost teachings of Jesus. They don't have a lot of these books that are not in print anymore on purpose that they took off. Okay? Now, let me just get into this, okay, where it talks about here, let me give you this. I happen to just see this about this Ashtaroth, okay, which was in Samuel 7, because I was watching something and this came up. I mean, it's, amazing how this happens. But, that goes into this Baal worship and all of that. And this is this tree. Now, you could go back and read what's on there. I can't do every little thing here because there's so much you could cover. But here's an example of somebody online who put this. Now, it's what I wanted to go into. The Asherah pole. An ancient bridge to our future liberation. Okay, now this is how I was talking about, with the coffee. And you say, well, that looks so different, but this is how they normally depict, it's a tree with a woman in it or what, different types of things. But it's now this person, this is the thing that makes me mad. This is where people tend to believe. Like, I understand, like, there are people who get into this new age, but yet they'll believe what the person says, and they don't know what they're talking about. Clearly, this person here who put this about this Asherah pole and saying that it's a bridge to our future, I mean, look at this. What she writes, the ancient Jews' spirituality was intrinsically connected to the earth. The Asherah pole is a symbol of that connection, discovered in burial grounds and ceremonial sites through archaeological findings. The Asherah pole is signified a core aspect of ancient spirituality, a pole between stars and the earth and a tree. Wherever Jews have landed, the teachings of the Asherah pole came with us. The Torah, our central text, speaks of the tree of life. The rabbis and the later of the Kabbalists. Okay, first of all, this woman, she's a liar because, yeah, it talks about that, and I'm going to show you, but it's not talking of, even in the Torah, it's warning you about these Asherah poles. But what I'm saying, that probably goes more into the people doing the Talmud, which I've told you about. Those are like the fake Jews, okay? But she's saying that this is the tree of life, everybody, in this. So people tend to believe that. That's what I'm saying. People take this because, let's face it, if you didn't grow up with any type of spiritual counsel or anything, you're going to assume maybe that's true, that she's saying that, this Asherah pole has to do with the tree of life. No, it does not. Okay, that's the tree probably of good and evil. People think it's the same. The tree of good and evil is not the tree of life. It's not the same thing. But see, this is what these people do. This is why, they talked about in the Bible about itching ears. Well, people are reading things and then just taking it instead of as soon as I read this, I picked up on this. But a lot of people might not. They might think, oh, is that what the tree of life? Or, maybe it is. But no, it's not. Okay. Like it clearly says in the Bible here. And I just happen to put this one because this is the tree of life version Bible. I just want to put this because this has to do with the Torah, okay, everybody. And it clearly says, you are not to plant yourself an Asherah pole of any kind of wood beside the altar of Adonai, your God, that you make for yourself. You are not to set up a pillar for yourself. So, and that's in, the Old Testament, which is the Torah. And then, of course, in the New Testament, there's also places. I'm going to put in different places where that shows. But I'm just saying that person is not being truthful. Now, maybe she herself doesn't know that that's true. I don't know. But whatever. These are people out there spreading all this fake BS that, that's why I'm saying, yeah, people have freedom of this, freedom of that. Well, certainly you don't have freedom to post your videos for the truth, but they certainly want to put out all, like here's this. I made this up because I'll have a voodoo donut and an Asherah coffee, okay, as a joke, except it's not really funny, right? But that's about how it is, everybody. Let's just, have those gross donuts and this coffee that they're promoting. I understand people like but you don't know. I'm talking about the coffee, okay? I have people in my own family that I've told them, I said, that symbol on there? They're looking at me like, what? And I'm like, yeah, well, I understand people don't know it. Of course, they don't want you to know it, but look how much money they make off all this stuff. But you see her again where I pointed out about the, with the sea, there's the mermaid, right? But then they talked about sirens, which sirens have wings, but that goes back to, if you go look up the other ones with the names, they show them with wings, like this Ishtar, they show that with wings on it, okay? But then the feet aren't really with the tail, but it doesn't matter. This is what they do. Okay, now here we go. There you have worshipped idols. You have been unfaithful to me. You have put pagan symbols on your doorposts and behind your doors. You have left me and climbed into bed with these detestable gods. You have committed yourselves to them. You love to look at their naked bodies. You have gone to Molech, which is, all this Baal worship also, with olive and many perfumes, sending your agents far and wide. Yeah. I mean, there's people all over the place spreading all this stuff. There is. It's unbelievable what's going on. And the sad thing is we've all been guilty. These pagan symbols, a lot of us don't even know Okay, they've hidden this. Like some of it goes into, we know, some of the Christmas decorations. But again, I'm, tired of the people that nitpick. If you're celebrating Christmas for the right reasons, about Jesus, we know his birth was probably another day. But the point is that you're in good faith. But I'm talking about some of the decorations that they put in. And that's true also, okay? And then, here's sacrificing children to Molech, which, the thing is people think that, that was way back. People were sacrificing. Where it says in the Bible, it clearly gives you. Well, no, I have to inform you that they've been doing it all along behind the scenes. The smaller group of people, but evidently we're up to now the end times where many people are doing these things. You'd be surprised. There's satanic idol Molech. It goes in a ball. That's the one they set up at the Colosseum, everybody. This Molech, I have pictures of it at the Colosseum just like 4 or 5 years ago. This humongous statue at the Colosseum. It's hard to believe, but it's all true. And let me just say this. About, that mentioned about the perfumes, okay? Now, let me tell you, where and whom you buy perfumes and toiletries from, you have to be very careful. You know how a lot of these, now, especially now, you see a lot of these entertainers, whatever they are, selling perfumes. If I was you, I wouldn't buy any of their perfumes. Especially the ones that you see that have big concerts and it's grotesque. Yeah. They are, don't buy them for your children or your teenagers. These perfumes, believe it or not, people, they actually do magic and things like that over these perfumes. I'm not kidding you. They are made they put these spells and things. I mean, people are noticing this at these concerts. That's why in the background, they have all this symbolism. I mean, whatever happened, I was young, you'd go to a concert and then it was just the band with lights, maybe, whatever. They might have people dance, but it didn't have any symbolism of all this disgusting stuff. Unless perhaps maybe you were into heavy metal, which, I never was. I was just you go to a regular rock concert, okay? But the thing is, it's disgusting how, I'm not kidding you about, you got to be careful. I have many, many researches, and you wouldn't believe that people who have companies now, okay, online. It's not just, like people will complain about, we know these big companies that sell, but that's with the corporation. But that doesn't necessarily mean they have, they're doing spells over mass production. Okay? I'm talking about like a lot of people that have these smaller. You got to check people out, everybody. Like I've had this one woman, she, wrote about, her sister got into selling lotions and creams. Okay, I have a video somewhere on it. And she found out that the woman that was doing the creams and making them up, they were putting these voodoo spells and things, and people were buying these things, and it was packaged nicely and everything, that there's bad things were happening to them, and they kept saying, what's going on? Well, that's what it was, and she found out about that. And had to, her and her sister, she had to take her somewhere to have this removed upon her because she had no idea. She thought she was just selling these products for the, it's just like if you were doing Avon. Okay, I'm not saying Avon, but that type of thing, selling products. I mean, look at all the people selling oil, like the CBD oil. I'm not saying everybody's involved at all. But there are people who can be involved in this selling oils, creams, perfumes, okay? And you don't even know about it, okay? And that's why you have to do your research, because I've seen people try to push things on people online. I'm not going to say who, what, when, where. Some of them are even religious people. Okay, I'm not talking about them personally. I'm talking about trying to push it on them. And it's probably because it's something like this with what's going on with these that they do. Now, let me get into this is something a lot of people don't know about either, okay? They trust in vanity and speak vain things. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity. They hatch cockatrice eggs and weave the spider's web. He that eats their eggs dies, and those which trodden upon breaketh into the serpent. Their web shall be no garment, neither shall they cover themselves with their labors. And their works are works of iniquity, and their works of cruelty is in their hands. And their feet run to evil, and they make haste and shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are wicked thoughts. Desolation and destruction is their paths. And the way of peace they know not, and there is no equity in their goings, and they have made them crooked paths. Okay? Whosoever go in shall not know peace. Now, this comes from Isaiah 59. This was in the Geneva Bible. Okay, that's why you see this is Old English. Some people can't read it. I have no trouble reading it, basically. There's many old Bibles that have the old. You do yourself good to go back, people, if you want it, because it's interesting when you see what there's certain things that they leave out. Okay, this is what this cockatrice is, everybody. What it is it's a rooster mixed with a serpent, like a snake, and supposedly hatched with by toad. Okay, it's the weirdest thing. But this is the thing. This is one of the pictures right here. Guess where this is? In Central Park in New York. Now, think about it. Why would they have this in Central Park in New York, this up there on one of the buildings? It's been there for a long time. Okay, but this is a depiction. You can see that that's what that is. It's like a snake, a rooster. And the funny thing is they say the only thing that can actually scare this off is actual real rooster. I mean, it's kind of funny, isn't it? But anyway, this is depicted in this Harry Potter movies, which is not good for your children either. Okay, why do you think they put that in these movies? I mean, I'm amazed to this day, people who they'll say, I don't believe that, in this stuff. People saying, well, maybe you don't believe it, but guess what? They do. They believe it. But it is also in the Bible warning you against these people that do this. Warning you, because that used to be something that, they talked about that was, okay, secret societies or people who do things in mystery behind the scenes, such as, in Hollywood. That's called the mystery, the magic. I have a meme on that too. It shows that it's a magic of, their art of magic there that they do. It has an owl on it. I mean, yeah, that's because they do a lot of this stuff, everybody. I mean, people think, oh, but way back. No, way back. If you go to silent pictures, go look at the symbolism in the background. They have a lot of this stuff in there. Now, I'm not saying that everybody did a movie knew about that. They may not have known. It's whoever put the sets in. Maybe they, purposely put that in. But a lot of them were into this type of thing. Now, I just want to quickly mention Roger from Mudfossil, who I always have in my links, that he talks about this quasicotal, and he shows you, if you can go back, I'm going to try to link that in his video. He has many videos. I mean, he shows you on Google Maps, everybody, these are the dragons. The things are humongous. I mean, this cockatrice wasn't always so big. They can be very small to huge. But I think that could be what this quasicotal, maybe this was one of those cockatrices that was mixed with something else that got huge, because we all know that things got huge when the fallen mixed themselves. They didn't mix themselves just with women, people. They mixed themselves with animals and all kinds of things, even plants, trees, hence the Asherah pole. So, this is why we had all these abominations. That's why, hence the flood. Yeah. I mean, when you know it all, you understand it all. But, I think this feathered serpent they show is quasicotal. This is the one in America. They have the big one over there in Africa, which is that typhon. Which you go back to his video, he'll explain it to you. You can clearly see it. I mean, the thing is like the whole part of top of Africa. It's unbelievable. But I think that could have something to do with what this was, this quasicotal, because look how colorful, because a lot of roosters are very colorful birds. There's, just like turkeys, there's different ones. Now, I'm going to just put this in. I watched this, some of these Brothers of Decay. These are, there's a lot of people who do these they go and visit abandoned places. Well, he's an, European guy. I think he's from Belgium. He goes into a lot of these castles and abandoned castles. Well, he found this one, and, the weapons that were left in there, it was a good example. If I can find this, I'm going to put this video in too, that as an example, everybody, that he talked about these weapons. I mean, you go and he shows you how huge they are. Because, they were left because this castle is like high on a mountain. So I guess the thieves didn't have time to come and get them. But the thing is, because they're so heavy, you're not going to like schlep this down the mountain. But the thing is, he goes, wonder why that, we know that people had battles and things way back, but, you see a lot of these people who go to these abandoned things, and they'll say, wonder why if you just had to fight another man, why would you need such weaponry like this that's huge, it's so long, you see, it's amazing that these men, people were very strong back then with what they had to wear in the armor. Well, I'll tell you why. Because they were fighting these cockatrices. That's why. This is the things that they've lied about. That's why if you go into a lot of the old castles and things, they have depictions of them fighting monsters. That's why most old castles and things have chapels in them. A lot, people were very, they read the Bible back then. They trusted what was in it. They knew that these weren't just things in the Bible, such as, here again, I'm putting in, this is from, again, they hatch cockatrice eggs and weave the spider's web, okay? And here again, about the serpent. It says they make haste to shed innocent blood. This goes into all the things, I'm talking about, like with the donuts and with the, we know the sacrifices. Somebody's island that they're talking about again, that everybody's upset about. Yeah, they shed innocent blood. I mean, cannibalism. Here again, another picture. There's many pictures, you can look this up, of what these things look like. Okay? Yeah, I love this. Fear not, my lady. I'm signing another online petition. Yeah, why? We're getting run after by dragons. But think about it. And literally, they're spewing out. Think about this dragon. Like, they're spewing out all their poison, okay? But it's true. Because when they say we fight against principalities, everybody, but these principalities, unfortunately, made themselves into bodies. Now, whether you believe this or not, I think a lot of people are starting to see that. They've made themselves into bodies, and that's why they act weird, they look weird, and they, you see that, like I said, there's many videos on this, and they basically are spewing out their poison just like the dragons, because, what they say, think about what some of these people say. Think about the things that they spew out far as, to harm your children. I mean, the system now is set up, it's not there to do good things for your children. It's there to be destructive. Think about all the things in school that they want to talk about that they have no business talking about in regular school. They have no business talking about. And parents are just like sitting back on their heels, because I understand you're working 2-3 jobs, because it's not supposed to be like that. You're not supposed to have 2-3 people to pay for one mortgage. It should have been, it's always supposed to have been where a family has a home and you can raise your children, whether you have a certain income, you live in a certain area or not, right? I mean, we understand there's always been people who have money, but even people who have money have huge expenses. And they can't even afford a lot of things that's going on, okay? That's why for the people who think everything's hunky-dory, it's not. Right? We see that it's a spiritual problem. But once you think, a lot of people think the financial problem is going to go away. I don't think so. Because back in even the Great Depression, things were still made in America. But there wasn't such a depravity of a moral degradation in our country. But I just wanted to show you that these are the things in the Bible that, it's true. A lot of these pastors or people who have ministries or whatever they are, they never talk about. That's why, people keep telling you have certain messages to read the Bible yourself. You don't need somebody to direct you if you know how to read. That's why you should be educated. And you see that the educational system is horrible. Okay, absolutely. I'm not trying to nitpick on anybody, but, you get a lot of people say, well, I can't read those old English Bibles. Well, that's fine. But the reason I say you would do yourself a good service to go back and look at these things is because that's why in some of those older Bibles, it talks more in detail about some of these things. Okay, it does. So anyway, everybody, go and look that up. I'm going to link in these, I'm going to link in some of these videos. And here's the prayer we know, because you need to say these prayers over your home and yourself, because there's a lot of really bad things going on. And I hope you're going to have a good day. And say your prayers over your home, and because you need it for what's coming. And I'll talk to you later. God bless all of you.